Hi everyone. This tutorial is going to be about what I'm calling pro titles. Pro titles are where your letters look like they're made out of some kind of material, like in this case metal, or they have some kind of grunge texture. They're made with watercolor, scratchy paper, anything that gives them a texture. It's a really easy technique once you get the hang of it, but it's something we're going to be using a lot in a lot of different units. So make sure you take your time and get really comfortable with it. So I've already set up a simple title here, and I took a moment just to warp the T to remind myself to mention to you that there is a warp tool up at the top of the text menu bar. If you open up that menu, you get a lot of options for warping or bending or twisting titles, and that can be useful sometimes. So my text is on 3 separate layers, and I've put all those layers into a single group to make this procedure easier. The shortcut to create a group is Control G. Next, you want to go to Google and do an image search for the kind of texture you want. Make sure that you set your filter to large. When you find a texture you like, copy it, and then make a new layer above the group with your text and paste your texture into that layer. So what we want to do now is make sure that this metal texture only shows up in the places where the letters are. And to do that, we're going to turn this layer into what's called a clipping mask. So right click on the layer and go to Create Clipping Mask. You'll see that the layer now has a little arrow that's kind of pointing down to the group underneath. That tells us that they're linked. So the metal texture is not going to show up anywhere that is transparent in group 1, which means it can only show up where the letters are. So you can move that layer around, you can resize it, you can rotate it, you can do whatever you want. It still will only show up inside the letters. Now you can still add any layer effects you want by double-clicking on the group and opening the layer effects panel. There's one we didn't look at that's actually really useful in cases like this that helps make the letters look a little bit more three-dimensional. And that's called the bevel and emboss effect. And what that does is give the letters kind of a 3D edge. They'll either look like they're sticking up or they're carved into a surface depending on the settings. I think you know layer effects well enough now that you can play around with this and see what kind of effects you can get. And this same technique works for any texture. You just do a different Google search. You can do it with stone, you can do it with watercolor paint, you can do it with anything you can find. And if you've ever seen those titles that have photos showing through the letters, this is exactly the same technique that you would use for that. Do a Google image search to find the photo you want. Create a new layer above your group, paste the photo there, turn that layer into a clipping mask, and move it around until it fits the letters the way that you want. You're never locked into anything with this technique either. You can still go back and modify your text, and you can even add new layers inside the group. If you want to add a bar and have it affected by the texture or photo, you can do that. You can even add entire sections of the photo back by drawing out a rectangle, clicking inside, and filling it with a color. That's how those textual portraits are done. You may have noticed that the background of my images has been black instead of white in most cases. You can do that really easily by just going down to the Create a New Adjustment Layer button. It's the circle cut in half. And then go to Solid Color. You can then pick whatever color you want. You can change it anytime by double-clicking the little icon. You can also select colors directly from your title, and that allows you to do some interesting things where it looks like little chunks of a letter are missing. Just keep your readability in mind. Okay, so that should give you a lot to play with. So go out, experiment with clipping masks, and try out some pro titles.